Have you ever found yourself stirring awake at 3 in the morning, lying there in silent darkness and wondering why you feel so alert at an hour when the rest of the world seems to be fast asleep? For older adults, this phenomenon is more frequent and multifaceted than many realize. It can be unsettling to open your eyes and see that it's only 3 a.m., especially when you don't feel tired enough to slip back into slumber. Yet this scenario is far from unusual, and it often reflects deeper shifts in your body, mind, and daily routine, rather than a simple case of getting older. In fact, there are at least 5 powerful reasons why you might be experiencing these early morning awakenings, and each one reveals something significant about your changing physiology, emotional well-being, or lifestyle. First, you may be dealing with a reduced production of melatonin, that all-important hormone guiding your sleep-wake cycle. When you were younger, your pineal gland likely generated a steady supply of melatonin that lulled you to sleep and held you there until morning. But as we age, the amount of melatonin we produce decreases. This decline doesn't always stop you from falling asleep at your usual bedtime, especially if you're already feeling a bit tired. But by the time 3 a.m. arrives, your reserves might be running low. As this sleep hormone wanes, you slip from deeper sleep into a lighter state of wakefulness. A street light filtering through the blinds, a small LED glow from your digital clock, or even the quiet hum of a household appliance might then be enough to keep you from drifting off again. In that moment, you might feel frustrated, blaming yourself for poor sleep. Yet recognizing that your body's natural chemistry is part of the equation can help transform self-blame into understanding. Another critical piece of this puzzle is something called advanced sleep phase syndrome, which essentially means your internal clock has moved your bedtime to an earlier hour, thus prompting an earlier wake-up time. In your 20s or 30s, you may have been able to stay wide awake until 11 p.m. or midnight without difficulty. But as time progresses, you might start feeling drowsy by 8 or 9 p.m., sometimes nodding off before you even realize it. Your circadian rhythm, which is sensitive to cues like light, temperature, and activity levels, can shift forward in this way, meaning that by the time the clock hits 3 o'clock or 4 a.m., you have already logged several hours of shut-eye and your body believes it's time to face the day. This shift can feel inconvenient or isolating if it leaves you awake during the wee hours, but there's a certain logic to it from your body's perspective. It finished its night's work early. The third dimension to consider is physical discomfort or health-related interruptions. As we get older, the likelihood of experiencing aches, pains, or chronic conditions increases. And these issues often surface in the tranquility of nighttime. Whether it's arthritis making your joints ache after you've remained in one position for hours, acid reflux creeping upward and giving you a scratchy throat or mild burning sensation, or the urge to use the restroom because your bladder has grown more sensitive. These are all subtle disturbances that can snap you out of your deep slumber. What begins as a minor ache in your hip or a slight dryness in your mouth can gradually intensify, rousing you around 3 a.m. When you stand, move around, and address the discomfort by stretching, drinking water, or visiting the bathroom, your mind and body might jump into a higher state of alert. The result is a fully awakened state that feels more like morning than the middle of the night. Medications can also factor into this scenario. Many older adults take prescriptions to manage blood pressure, heart conditions, diabetes, or other ailments, and those medications might carry side effects that disrupt sleep. Some drugs increase your need to urinate, while others alter your body's temperature regulation or cause subtle shifts in hormone levels. This interplay between physiology and medication can make a 3 a.m. wake-up more likely, yet it's often overlooked unless someone takes the time to connect the dots between their prescription schedule and their restless nights. A fourth contributor involves lifestyle habits and shifting daily rhythms, factors often shaped by retirement or a generally slower pace of life. Picture someone who used to work full-time, leaving home early in the morning and returning in the late afternoon or evening. They'd run errands, go to social events, maintain an active routine, and still manage to stay awake until 10, or under p.m. But once work obligations fall away and your evenings become more subdued, you might inadvertently start winding down much earlier. If you eat dinner by 5 o'clock p.m. and follow it with a few relaxing hours of television or reading, you could find yourself climbing into bed by 8:30 or 9 o'clock p.m. without realizing how significantly this shift has changed your internal schedule. After all, if you've already had 6 or 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep, it's only natural for your brain to declare that the night is over by 3 a.m. Even small things like the absence of bright light in the late afternoon, reduced social obligations, or a lack of vigorous physical activity can accelerate your internal clock. Meanwhile, if you like to nap during the day or doze off in front of the TV, that too can condense your overnight sleep. These changes may happen so gradually that you only notice them once you're consistently waking up in the early morning darkness, unable to settle back down. Lastly, and perhaps most poignantly, there's the emotional and psychological component. Older adulthood can bring with it a quieter life overall, which may offer more time for reflection, but also for rumination. The middle of the night tends to be when worries, regrets, or yearnings rise to the surface. You might find yourself replaying past events, thinking about loved ones who are far away or have passed on, or turning over dilemmas that you've put on the back burner during the day. Loneliness in particular can be acutely felt at 3 o'clock a.m. When the household is silent and you can't easily reach out to anyone for conversation. Perhaps you are missing a spouse you once shared your bed with, or a good friend you used to call in the evening hours. These thoughts can swirl in your mind, keeping you too mentally active to slip into another cycle of deep sleep. Sometimes the older you get, the more your experiences and memories accumulate. And if you haven't had the chance to fully process them, nighttime can become the mind's chosen window for doing so. Understanding that these emotional stirrings are not a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to the breadth of your life experiences can help you handle them more gently. Some individuals find solace in journaling, meditation, or quiet prayer during these early hours, transforming what feels like an annoyance into a contemplative practice. Others keep a small lamp and a favorite book next to the bed, using the time to read until drowsiness returns. Still others find that making an effort to connect with friends or loved ones during the day, scheduling walks, calls, or casual meetups, reduces that sense of isolation, ultimately improving their ability to sleep through the night. It's worth noting that these 5 reasons, melatonin decline, advanced sleep phase, physical health issues, shifting daily habits, and emotional factors, often overlap. You might feel the pull of multiple influences simultaneously. For example, you could wake up because your bladder is nudging you, and then stay awake because your room isn't dark enough to encourage melatonin production, all while your mind starts churning over old memories. The interplay among these elements can leave you feeling like a light sleeper in later life, a label that might frustrate you if you remember how easily you slept decades ago. But try to see this as a natural evolution rather than a deficiency. Your body and mind are adapting to different environmental, social, and physiological cues. One of the most empowering things you can know is become more observant of your own patterns. Notice what time you typically feel tired in the evening, when you actually fall asleep, and when you wake up. Pay attention to whether you feel rested during the day or if you're constantly dozing off in the afternoon. Keep tabs on whether you drink caffeine or alcohol later in the day. If you're unsure about the side effects of your medications, consider discussing them with a healthcare provider to see if certain pills might be nudging you out of sleep at 3 a.m. This level of self-awareness can guide you to solutions that fit your unique situation. For instance, if melatonin decline is your core issue, you might choose to reduce light exposure in your bedroom, avoid screens in the hour before bed, and possibly explore melatonin supplements under professional guidance. If advanced sleep phase is your challenge, you might shift your bedtime forward by increments of 15 minutes, staying up slightly later each night until you find a better balance. If physical discomfort wakes you, investigate methods to address that discomfort, whether it's a new mattress, a different bedtime routine for muscle relaxation, or altered meal times to mitigate reflux. If your lifestyle has become too sedentary, incorporate regular walks, gentle exercise classes, or even volunteer work to keep your days active, thereby priming your body for more consolidated sleep at night. And if emotional unrest is playing a role, You might cultivate routines such as evening journaling or prayer, or even seek out a therapist or support group to help you process lingering grief or loneliness. It's also important to recognize that waking up at 3 a.m. doesn't automatically mean you have full-blown insomnia. You may only be awake for half an hour, or you might find it relatively easy to drift back to sleep after a short while. In such cases, the best approach can be acceptance. Treat these interludes as normal variations in your sleep pattern. Stressing about being awake can lead to more anxiety, which in turn makes sleep even more elusive. If the wake-ups extend to an hour or more, and you find yourself tossing and turning, it can be helpful to get out of bed briefly, read a book in another room, sip a calming herbal tea, or listen to soothing music before attempting to return to bed. This redefines your bed as a sanctuary for sleep rather than a battleground for insomnia. Another valuable perspective, nighttime awakenings can sometimes foster creativity or reflection. History is full of accounts of people who wrote poems, solved problems, or found inner clarity during these nocturnal episodes. While that's not to say you should aim to be up at 3 a.m. on a regular basis, it does suggest that if you do awaken, it might be more beneficial to gently use the time rather than rail against it. Some older adults who have adapted to their advanced sleep phase might go to bed around 8:30 p.m., wake at 3 a.m. to read or meditate for an hour, then doze again for another cycle of rest. This split sleep pattern, while unorthodox by modern standards, was actually quite common in pre-industrial times when artificial lighting was minimal. You might also explore how outside influences, like the time of year, affect you. In winter, with fewer hours of sunlight, advanced sleep phase can become more pronounced. In summer, you may be exposed to more daylight and remain up longer. Tracking these seasonal variations can help you adjust your habits accordingly. For example, you might get more morning sunlight in winter to combat the early nightfall effect, or use light-blocking curtains in summer if you find yourself awakening too soon. If persistent sleep disruptions lead to daytime fatigue, mood swings, or confusion, it's always wise to consult a healthcare professional. They can rule out conditions like sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or significant hormonal imbalances that might require medical intervention. But very often you'll find that with small, deliberate changes and a new willingness to see your 3 a.m. wake-ups as part of a complex interplay of body and mind, you can find a new rhythm that serves you well. This is not to minimize the frustration. Waking when you'd rather sleep can be challenging, yet approaching the issue with patience and self-compassion can be transformative. Instead of blaming yourself, or worse, resigning yourself to poor rest, you can glean insights about your current life stage. Each nocturnal awakening might be telling you something. Maybe it's time for a gentler evening, or an earlier dinner, or a check on medication side effects, or a candid conversation about unresolved feelings of grief. In a culture that prioritizes a single, unbroken stretch of sleep, these midnight awakenings can feel abnormal, but they may well be a natural adaptation. Over time, many older adults find a comfortable balance by adjusting their habits, shifting their schedule, or simply accepting that 6 hours of sleep each night is enough, provided they feel good during the day. Some discover that adding a brief afternoon siesta helps them function well, making a 3 a.m. interruption less of a crisis. Ultimately, the reasons you might be jolted from sleep in the darkest hours, melatonin changes, advanced sleep phase, physical discomfort, lifestyle shifts, and emotional undercurrents, can blend together in a tapestry that is uniquely yours. Understanding these interconnected elements can be deeply reassuring. Rather than concluding, "I'm just bad at sleeping now," you might say, "My body and mind are telling me something." That small shift in perspective can alleviate anxiety, opening the door to experimentation and self-care. After all, aging isn't merely a winding down, it's a continuing evolution of your entire being, sleep patterns included. If you realize your bedroom environment is hindering your melatonin, you can dim lights and turn off electronics. If your advanced sleep phase is out of sync with your social life, you can nudge your bedtime later by 15-minute increments. If chronic knee pain or a restless bladder is the culprit, you can seek medical advice or adopt new routines that mitigate those causes. If quiet evenings have lulled you into an ultra-early bedtime, You can add a bit more lively activity or social engagement to extend your wakeful hours. And if the quiet darkness at 3 km leads you to reflect on old memories or lingering grief, perhaps this is the time to write, pray, or talk with a counselor, tapping into a deeper reservoir of emotional health. In this way, the unwelcome 3 km wake-up call can become an invitation to explore a richer tapestry of self-awareness and adjustment. The key is recognizing that there's nothing inherently broken about you or your sleep. Swing shifts your internal chemistry and external routines in myriad ways. Rather than waging war on these changes, you can adapt to them with curiosity and kindness. That doesn't mean you'll never again mutter under your breath when you find yourself awake while everyone else slumbers. But it does mean you can approach the experience with less frustration and more practical insight. Over time, this perspective often leads to a more balanced, compassionate, and ultimately satisfying relationship with sleep itself. You'll realize that while you may not sleep exactly as you did decades ago, the nature of your rest can still be replenishing, meaningful, and responsive to the wisdom that only comes with age.